Welcome to episode 39 of Stageworthy. I'm your host, Phil Rickaby. Stageworthy is a podcast about people in Canadian theatre. On Stageworthy, I might talk one-on-one with an actor, director, playwright, or producer, or I might get a group of people together to talk about a specific aspect of theatre in Canada. If you'd like to be a guest on Stageworthy or just want to drop me a line, you can find Stageworthy on Facebook and Twitter at StageworthyPod, and you can find the website at stageworthypodcast.com. Aaron Jan is an award-winning Chinese-Canadian playwright, director, and founding member of Filament Incubator. Aaron recently directed 2 shows in this past summer's Toronto Fringe, Rowing and Silk Bath. If you enjoy the podcast, I hope you'll subscribe on iTunes or Google Music or whatever podcast app you use, and consider leaving a comment or rating. Tell me about. First off, like, do you have something in SummerWorks, or are you just
No.
to see it?
I have a pass, so I'm seeing a bunch of shows because I never see shows at SummerWorks. I'm always working, so this is my first real year doing it. I've been really disappointed.
What is your primary role in theater?
I'm a director and playwright.
Okay,
and sometimes producer.
Well, we are all
producer by
producers
necessity.
because we have to be, right?
Exactly.
That's the important thing. So. What is your theater background?
I went to York, taught by Richard Bone.
Ah, well,
yes,
of course.
I went to York. I was at Ryerson for a bit. I just finished a training program with Factory in directing new work. I'm undergoing a 3 to 5 year mentorship with Neely Aquino in direction.
Okay.
I've been doing Fringes for the past 20 since 2012. It's Hamilton Braves, Hamilton born, now living in this city for fun reasons.
Fun reasons. We all have to go somewhere.
Exactly.
Right?
I also find I heard this year was really different, but I find the community there quite toxic.
In Hamilton?
Yes.
Okay.
But this year I hear was very different.
The Fringe?
Yeah,
or?
The Fringe.
Okay.
Like, I hear the Fringe vibe. The Fringe, I never really find the Fringe a toxic environment. I find the local theater scene to be quite toxic, to be honest.
Okay, now, I want to make sure that you're aware. We are recording now. So
we are recording. Yeah. Oh, I'm fine. I've said this on many podcasts.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because if we're gonna talk some shit, then I want to make sure that you know that I hit play a little while ago.
Oh yeah.
The one thing, my thing about Hamilton, is Hamilton's theater scene could use some proper theater criticism.
I agree. I totally agree. There's one critic in Hamilton. It's Gary Smith, who's the one that is actually critical about things. But the problem is he's from a different generation.
Hardly ever. I literally first off, he reviewed maybe 5 of the Fringe.
Oh, which isn't helpful. That's not helpful at all. It's like if Kelly pops by the Fringe.
But generally, every show got a good review.
Yeah.
And I was talking to a couple of people, not everybody, because I think that some people maybe like the fact that they're getting a good review.
Yeah.
But if you always get a good review, then your good review means nothing.
Yeah.
What they need is somebody to actually call them out and say, this was not good, this is why, or I did not like this because X. Instead, there is nothing to challenge them. There's no challenge, so you don't have to strive.
Yeah.
Because you will be considered a success because you got good reviews.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that kind of weirds me out about the city too. I listened to your podcast a few weeks ago, actually, about the comps, and that bugs me too.
The which?
There's a culture in Hamilton, especially the theater community.
You mean about if somebody was to be? I didn't know. I'm sorry. I've done so many of these. I have to refresh my memory of what we were talking about.
I think there's an interview about how the artists in Hamilton were talking about how important it is that they see shows for free. Or something, some podcast. I don't know who you. Someone else. Someone said there was this weird culture in the city.
Here's my thing. Fringe. Yes, it is important that artists see theater for free, but there's a specific reason for that during Fringe.
Sure.
That is, number one, it increases the closeness of the Fringe family, which is your most important thing.
Yeah.
Well, one of the most important things, but also, if I see something I will recommend it. Not only am I going to shout it out, I'm not going to shout out something I have not seen.
Oh, I don't do that either.
But if I have seen it and I like it, I'm going to shout it out. But also, I have been in this situation when I'm talking to somebody in a line and I'm saying, would you come and see my show? And they say, oh, I'm not available at that time. I say, well, when are you available? Oh, okay, here's what's playing at that time. I've seen this show. It's really good. I'm selling other people's shows. Whether artists should, like, as a right, be able to see other people's shows for free outside of Fringe? Fuck it. No.
Yeah.
Because half of the time, our audience is other artists. So, we have to make a living at this.
I don't know. There's, because one of the things that really bothered me, and this is a bothering thing, maybe we can get something positive soon, but when Claire stepped into the Fringe, Claire Callan, you know Claire Callan?
I don't, actually. She was not...
she wasn't around this year.
This year she was on mat leave, so the interim director was Jessica
Anderson. Yeah. Claire really turned the Fringe around, because what she did was, she increased ticket sales significantly since Brian Morton was there. But what she did that was really interesting was, she abolished... Artists used to have a lanyard around their neck, and you could just show that lanyard and get into shows, no questions asked. Right. She got rid of that, and that got so much criticism, which I thought was like,
Interestingly, that is the more, like, that lanyard thing, that is, first off, they would be the only Fringe that I know of that does that.
Yeah, I know.
Like, just being able to show up and get into a show for free, that takes the control over how many comps I'm offering out of my hands as an artist.
Yeah.
So I definitely applaud, and I can, number one, I understand why she would have taken flack for that, but it was a very necessary move.
Definitely. I don't know. When I do comps, it's a strategic thing. Like, when I'm looking at the festival, it's like, oh shit, I have a noon matinee on a Wednesday. I'm just trying to think of the day that sucks. A hump day matinee. That's when I'm going to artists in for free. But I think, like, especially with Hamilton, something that really bothered me was that, like, I always make a habit of paying for shows.
Right.
It's just a luxury I have because I'm just able to do that. And I understand a lot of people aren't in that financial situation, but I think that, like, because I know a lot of people in the city who will not see shows unless they get in for free. They will refuse to see shows unless they get in for free. And I know that, like, that happened to my friend Michael Cross for Dirty Girl. Did you see him seeing Dirty Girl?
I didn't get to. It was at
Staircase,
which was a hike. And if I'm trying to fly her this line and this line, and I have to make the trek to
it's a waste of time.
It's a long journey. But go on.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess my resounding issue with the city. And I understand people are calling it like a developing theater capital, which is really exciting, is that there's a culture of artists not paying for shows and not supporting each other's work. While I understand that's a Fringe thing, and I understand why that's valuable at a Fringe, I find it does carry over to the rest of the year. Not getting it for free, but then they don't become avid patrons of the theater. And also, going back to the criticism, right? I do the Fringe so I can make money. I mean, like, the work is valuable.
The work is valuable, but we do the Fringe for two things: get the work seen, to do more work, and to make money.
Yeah, I want to at least break even, so my cast can survive.
Yeah,
that in the city, like pay for beer, pay for food.
The interesting thing that about those like for me, I had a standing 5 password comps at the door because the password you find passwords in Fringes.
Oh yeah,
it's Toronto doesn't. Maybe they've started to do it.
They do passwords,
do it, but they didn't for a while, and it was new for me when I went to Montreal. But every other Fringe I went to was doing it, and so I had a standing 5 standby comps.
Yeah, that's great.
But I said, if you want to be on the guest list, you ask me.
Yeah,
and I'll put you on. But I never had more than like 3 people.
Interesting, yeah.
But it was so I don't mind. I want to know if you're there.
Yeah,
I don't mind if you use one of the standby comps because I firmly believe that we sell each other.
Yeah, I buy that too.
And so, I mean, I don't care. My last show, I still had comps because maybe they can't sell me, but it's still. Yeah. I saw your show on your comp. You're coming to my show. That's just how it works. But I mean, from what I can see, I mean, as somebody who is kind of an interloper in Montreal, and I only spent Fringe there, but I talked to a lot of people, and it's that whole. Burgeoning and growing theater scene.
Yeah.
Where it's an adolescent scene and it is growing, and The things that it needs are, I mean, number one, there needs to be some actual criticism.
Yeah, I buy that. I agree.
And when that criticism starts, then the cream will rise.
Yeah.
And people will be challenged in a way that they maybe aren't.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing that I will say is that my Fringe experience in Hamilton was close to my Montreal experience in terms of warmth.
Yeah.
In terms of the Fringe family.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of a bunch of things. So I have to say that it was a really good experience.
Totally.
The things that I am saying about Fringe or Hamilton as its quote-unquote needs, I think are kind of undeniable, but they are the product of a new scene that's like becoming what it needs to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's interesting because I think like a lot of factors happened this year that really helped it. Last year was kind of a bitter, angry year for the Fringe because of Panamania. There was a fucking heat wave that passed through the city.
Wait, we had a heat wave again. Like our last weekend, the I think it was the Thursday or Friday was so hot. I felt like the audiences suffered.
Yeah. Oh, did you find your sales like?
I thought that my sales dropped a little bit, but I mean, you can't fight the weather.
No,
Panamania would have been. Now, was Panamania stuff that was going on in Hamilton at the same time?
There was rowing in Hamilton.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
Yeah. So, and it was tricky because, like, I found also like our sales in general were very strong last year, whereas like 2014, everyone was selling incredibly well, and this year, most people seem to be doing incredibly well.
I mean, we did all right. I mean, there were only a few shows that sold out, and from what I could tell, the shows that sold out for the most part were local shows, but that is not unusual in a Fringe scene.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, if you look at the Fringe cultures in different places, the in Toronto, the audience is more interested in people that come from here.
Totally.
And so those are the shows that are going to sell out because we have names that we look to. There are other shows that will catch on after time.
Sure.
But for that first weekend, a local show is going to sell out over a later one. So it's the same sort of thing in Hamilton. The shows that sold out were by locals who've been working there for years.
Yeah, I found I had an advantage when I used to theater in Hamilton because I was a local, and I'd have a greater advantage when the cast was local. When I was bringing over a cast, like, we wouldn't sell as well.
You know, the other thing is that I did watch people. I stayed in Hamilton for the whole festival because I firmly believe that if you're going to be a part of a Fringe, be a part of that Fringe.
Definitely, yeah.
And there were people who sort of would come in for their show, perform their show, and then go back.
Why would you do that? That's
I mean,
antithetical to the nature of the Fringe or a festival.
I mean, it could be, but it depends on what's important to you. If just doing the work is important to you, then that's enough. But if you are not seeing, now, first of all, Hamilton is a place that wants you to love it.
Yeah.
So in order to love it, it has to see you loving it. So, and that's just the city, right?
Yeah.
That's the city. Because I'm not going to go. You know, the city knows what it's becoming.
Yeah.
What it wants to become and wants to be that. If you just roll in, you're not giving a shit about the city.
Yeah.
And if all you care about is just doing your show, that's fine. But you have to talk to people about your show. You have to be seen talking about people about your show, and I think that helps if you are out there being seen, being a part of it.
Totally.
But just to show up, I think that hurts.
Yeah.
I think that hurts you as somebody promoting your show because
absolutely
people see that you're not a part of it.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, I try to see 30 shows at Fringe a year.
Jesus.
So, yeah, I go hard.
Oh,
I go really fucking hard.
See, this year was my first ever solo performance.
I heard it was really solid. I'm sorry I missed it, man.
Thank you. So the first few days, I just had to get through my show.
Yeah.
The first day, I thought, I'm going to see a show maybe 2 hours before, but I was freaking out so much
it's
that I couldn't because I was going to throw up or something.
It's like a ritual thing. I know, like, I had 2 shows in the Toronto Fringe this year. Until they opened, I couldn't see anything. After they opened, I was like, yes, I'm seeing shows.
What were the shows that you
I did Silk Bath at the Tarragon Main.
Okay, yeah.
And rowing in a basement in Kensington Market.
Oh, jeez.
So I had 2. Funny thing, I did rowing in Hamilton. It got fucking torn apart. People fucking hated it. Did pretty much the same show in this city. People loved it, and I sold.
You know, the funny thing is that there are people I know who tour every year,
yeah,
and they will take a show They will go in from Montreal and they'll fucking love it, and they'll bring it to Toronto and they'll fucking love it, and they'll take it to Winnipeg and it'll be crickets.
Yeah, it's weird.
You don't know because every city is different.
Yeah,
it's rough though when you walk in. You do 2 cities and you're like, fuck, we got this, and then you walk in and you're like, oh, don't got it. That's
what I love about the Fringe too. It's kind of like, I mean, I've been watching a lot of Hamilton, that musical, lately. And they always talk about legacy. Like, your legacy is irrelevant at festivals, which I love. Like, if you produce, unless you're like one of these invincible touring companies.
Well, I mean, look, if you have a history of proven work, if you're Peter and Chris, if you are Jem Rolls, if you are Nancy Kenny, if you are Cameron Moore, you can go and you have this. People know that you do good work. Yeah. And you can walk in like Peter and Chris. That name sells.
Oh yeah.
But that's a name that sells because of years and years and years of excellence, right? Yeah. And those people who sell that well have earned it. But it is so. Those are the few people who can like go from city to city and do fine. But you cannot rest on your laurels. Exactly. Fringe will not let you do that.
And that's what I love about the festival. Because it's like, every year you're just going in raw, essentially. I remember, like, we won Best of Hamilton Fringe back in 2012, and we were like, oh, we're great. And then we went to Toronto and got killed in the next year, and went to Hamilton with that show also and got murdered. So it was such a good, humbling experience, especially as a young artist. Like, when you find success out of the gate, getting kicked down your second year is amazing, because then you're like, no, I didn't do this, and I'm paying for it.
You've got to figure out, in that sort of situation, why.
Yeah, exactly.
Why did it not work this second time?
Yeah.
And then it becomes a matter of, was it that, like, for example, were you too confident when you started off? Like, were you, like, here's, like, that'd be the first question I ask. If I killed at Hamilton and I come to Toronto and I die, was I too confident that I didn't put enough in to that start? Did I?
Well, I guess talking about 2012, like, looking back on that, we're jumping all over the place, so that's great.
Yeah.
It's, I think that was a really lucky year for us, because that was my first year doing the Fringe. I had this half dance, half physical theater monologue show. One half was dance, the other half was, like, physical theater dialogue. And we were the best-selling show in the festival. I was the youngest person to ever win Best of Fringe. I was flyering. No one else was flyering. It was an off year for the Fringe, because at that time, they had just lost a relationship with Theater Aquarius.
Okay.
Something happened where they fucked it up. It was like a down year for them, and we were a bunch of kids that nobody had heard about, selling incredibly well. And this was like 2 years after I'd gotten kicked out of Ryerson Theater School, so it was just like, that was such a good thing to happen, but it also made me get complacent for 2013.
Of course it did.
Because then it made me think that, like, oh, anything I produce will be great, which kills me. That murders me.
Of course it did. And, the funny thing is there's a certain, it's like, fuck, each Fringe is its own thing, so you have to walk in, and you know what, each year of a Fringe is its own thing. You don't even know. But you sort of have to walk in, just sort of like, and get your bearings, and just know, I got to put everything into this one, and you can at no time kick back and say, I got this.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I love about the Fringe, is it keeps you humble as an artist, and keeps you, like, gracious, and keeps you a part of the community. I know that's the one thing I regret in 2013's, when I tried in 2013, I didn't flyer, I didn't talk to artists at the time, I didn't see anyone, but when I was back in 2015, I was like, no, I'm going to meet as many people as possible, because, like, I don't understand people who send the island people you talk about. They go and they do their show, they leave. That bothers me, because it's like, it's a festival. You're part of a fucking festival. Yeah. We get, as artists, even if we don't get into shows for free, we get discounts for free.
Yeah.
I can buy a discounted pass at Hamilton, so you bet I'm going to see 30 shows.
It's the interesting thing for me is that I'm losing my train of thought.
That's okay.
Even as I start to talk. Yep. Nope. It's gone.
Nope.
It's gone. Whatever. So I don't remember what I was going to say. That's super embarrassing. But all right. I think my thought was around. No, who knows?
Who knows?
Anyway,
it's gone.
It took a walk.
It took a walk. It'll come back.
Yeah. In terms of. Oh, you know what? It was the fact that when you are in a Fringe, if you are not flyering, you are not doing well, unless you are
a show that has a lot of things going for it. Like,
right. But
Can Baby didn't flyer, but they sold it every
Can Baby was one of those. Well, Can Baby was one. Well, first off, the winner of the Toronto Fringe playwriting contest usually does well.
And it was, did you see it?
I didn't get to see it.
Oh,
it was
so
one of those things I didn't get
good.
to see. Jess Moss, I've known her for years, and like kudos to her because everybody who sees that says this show is ready for a professional run right now.
Phil, I've never seen a show that's used the factory main space so well. Because, like, I did a show there in 2015, and I don't know how to fucking use that space.
Yeah.
And, like, I've never seen a show that could actually control that space so well. Because it's such a difficult space. It's 44 feet wide. Yeah. It's 12 feet deep. Yeah. You're performing on a fashion show catwalk.
Yes, yeah.
And I don't know who directed it, but whoever directed it, she's amazing. Like,
But, you know, the idea of having to flyer is a democratizing and humbling experience.
I love it.
The fact that if you do not go walk up to people and talk about your show dies.
Definitely.
Which is the thing that scares me the most because I'm shitty at that stuff.
Oh yeah,
and it freaks me the fuck out.
What's your pitch? Like,
oh geez. Okay, so I would, you know, after the Can I Tell You About My Show, the pitch was it's the story about an atheist who finds out that he's been chosen by God to deliver his new commandment.
Boom. Right.
Done.
One sentence.
There's two reactions.
Yeah.
Majority of people laugh. They're my people. They're comment. There's a few people where all they hear is God and they hand it back and they're like,
people hand you back
those
cards?
Yeah, I had that.
Oh God.
I had that. Of course, there are also people. Can I tell you about my show? No. Okay. We're going.
That's fine because then you just see like you just weed them out. You're like, no, that's not my demographic. I know with Silk Bath this year, the people we approached in the houses were minorities. Yeah. Because the show was about immigrants competing in a series of reality game show competitions to get into a country. With rowing, I learned this the hard way in Hamilton. I approached millennials in lines. I was like, this is my demographic. I know who you are. Yeah. But I think it's always important to do that offering. Can I pitch you? And if they say no, just move down the lines. Like,
well, you have to.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to because if you launch into your pitch before they will turn you out. They will just tune you out. They don't, you know. And I've seen people do that. And if you basically put people off with the first words out of your mouth,
totally,
they're not coming to see your show. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter how good your pitch is.
Yeah.
But the whole. You cannot become too big for your britches if you still have to walk up to people and tell them about your show.
Yeah, and that's my favorite part of the Fringe. Yeah. I guess I don't know, like the whole SummerWorks thing. It's not a flyering festival, and that throws me off a little bit because then like. I feel it's a little insider.
I have not been involved in a SummerWorks season since it was a first come first serve festival.
Yeah, because it was a response to the Fringe,
the 90s. When, because a lot of Fringes when they start they become first come first serve.
Hamilton was until recently.
Yes, and when Edmonton started, it was a first come first serve.
Holy shit!
Like, way back when Edmonton started, it was that was a long time ago, but it was a thing. So a lot of Fringes do that at the beginning until they have enough that they can do the lottery.
Yeah.
But so I haven't really been involved in a SummerWorks since then, and we still flyered back then. So I don't know what the culture of SummerWorks is right now.
And maybe I don't know. Maybe it's just that something that isn't. Maybe that's something that's that's great. And I like how scrappy the Fringe is, and that's what always excites me. Yeah. I think they called it. It's Christmas in the summer.
Oh, fuck. I mean, I know so many people that their response to Fringe is, "This is my Christmas. This is my. I get to go out and I get to see stuff. All of the people in theater in Toronto, in indie theater, are bringing me gifts. Right now,
and it's really exciting because it's like you get to meet people. You talk about your show. Yeah. Everyone's really accessible. I just find that like. You can have a conversation with anyone. They want to talk to you because they want to find out what's good. Yeah. My favorite part is discovering shows. Yeah. That like I took a chance on this show this year in Toronto called False Start. It's a show about two miscarriages, football couple. I was like, okay, whatever. And I was blown away. And I hate St. Vlad's. Right. And I was there and I was like, this is the best thing I've seen all festival.
Listen, most people hate St. Vlad's merely because it's a refrigerator.
Oh, yeah. And the sightlines are god-awful.
The sightlines are terrible, but the fact that they give out blankets when you go in is like, okay, so I'm gonna wrap myself up here. The other thing that's always fun about Fringe is if you get to take it to different cities. Like you've gone Hamilton, Toronto.
I want to do Winnipeg. I hear Winnipeg's great.
Okay, like there's like night and day because Winnipeg second biggest in Canada. Oh. Edmonton's the biggest.
Toronto's third, right?
Maybe
third or fourth. I know they're top five.
They're top five, but the jump between Toronto and Winnipeg is humongous. Winnipeg, everybody knows about Fringe. It does not matter who you're talking to. Everybody knows about Fringe. The downtown core becomes Fringe. So the financial district becomes Fringe. And there are buskers, and there is a little market that surrounds it. There's a stage and beer tents, although the artists don't really go to the beer tents except to flyer. The artists go to a bar called the King's Head, which is where that's the place to go.
Cool.
And it basically, this area, everybody goes to, and everybody knows about Fringe, and everybody's going to see shows.
Yeah.
So, huge, supermassive, until you get to Edmonton, which is exponentially larger than those two, because it is as far as Canada is concerned, it is the granddaddy. It may be the oldest in North America, and it is thousands of people. Like on a Friday night, on the first Friday night, it is shoulder to shoulder people in the Fringe area, and it is so massive that there are people who go to Edmonton Fringe, and they go for the food trucks, and they go for the buskers, and they go for the beer tents.
Yeah.
And they do not realize that there's a theater component.
Richard told me that years ago.
Yeah. It's an amazing, strange, wonderful thing.
Yeah. I'm always interested in other countries' theater scenes. I mean, like, I'm kind of wary of touring because I want to make sure that, like, I can sell in a city. This year we were really fortunate. Like, Silk Bath really, really took off, and we were like, what? We were so surprised. 'Cause I never do well in Toronto, ever.
I would say, if you are thinking about touring to another city, and I would say this to you, and I would say this to anybody,
of course,
is that you have to be tireless in your promotion if you are not from there.
Yeah.
The example I always point to is Jem Rolls. If you have ever seen Jem Rolls at a Fringe festival, if you were to follow him around, you would watch him be nonstop as he goes from venue to venue to venue, talks to every person in a line, goes to the Fringe tent, talks to every person in that he can, and he does not stop, and that is how he sells his shows. And you have to figure out, for example, if you go to Montreal, you will find out that there is no line. People roll up just as the show is about to start, and they walk in and they go to the show. So you have to get them as they come out.
Yeah.
If you're a smart artist, you get a password for the show from another artist, and you sit at the back, and as soon as the show is over, you dash outside, and as they're coming out, you're like pitching your show.
Yeah, I've done that.
But that's the Montreal thing. And then, you know, a lot of other Fringes do lines, but Edmonton, people don't line up at the venue because they don't sell tickets at the venue.
Oh.
You either buy your tickets online or they have ticket kiosks. And so it becomes really important that you are in the Fringe area flyering everybody.
Yeah.
Because if they're in the line for the ticket kiosk, it's too late. They already know what they want to get. You can't flyer a lineup because you can't flyer a lineup, but they're lining up to get in. They're not lining up to buy tickets.
Yeah.
So they're basically just going to show up and go in. In fact, the Fringe volunteers leave basically when the show starts.
That's so interesting.
So you don't find there are no lineups for tickets because they're all purchased in advance.
Oh.
And you can become one of those people who becomes obsessed with watching your ticket sales each day.
Oh, yeah.
Because at Edmonton, it is a real-time system, so you can walk in and people will sit there and go, refresh.
That's all I did when I was home at 5 in the morning. Be like,
Yeah. So, which totally changes, because I watched people who had solid shows in, say, Winnipeg and even Calgary, which is a very small Fringe, go to Edmonton and just become this obsessive mess of, have I sold enough yet? Have I sold enough? You know, that sort of thing. When really, I know it's tempting, but if you haven't, get the fuck out there and talk to people. Because talking to people works.
Totally.
Talking to people works.
Yeah.
What is, in terms of your theater background, when did you decide, or when did you know that theater was something that you wanted to do?
Okay. A bit of a long story, but
we've got time.
Good. I got lots of time. I got nothing to do until like 8 p.m.
Well, it's an hour-long podcast.
Good. Okay. I'm like, this is going to be 7 hours. I think the big thing was I got kicked out of Ryerson Theatre School because I thought I wanted to be an actor.
Before that.
No, I didn't know until I got
something
kicked
made
out.
You want to be an actor.
I guess. I just did plays at Sears, and we won awards, and I did a drama camp when I was like a kid. But the big thing that really changed in me was, and that really made me want to do it again, was I got kicked out of Ryerson, and I fell in love with this dancer at Ryerson. I'm madly in love with her.
As one does when you're at theater school and there's a dance program.
Yeah, and we were both like at the bottom of our classes, and she liked my writing, and she told me to write her a monologue a day. So I wrote her a monologue a day for a while. Then then I remember I'd written this one model I didn't send her about how much I really cared about her.
Mm-hmm.
My aunt had died the last weekend, and I came up to drink, and I was talking to her, and yeah, we were just talking, shooting the shit, and she mentioned that like she was still getting about to get kicked out of the program. She should have dropped out like I did, and I was like, no, and I was wasted at this point. I was like, no. I got this writing. I wrote you. So I gave her this monologue, delivered it to her, and I was like, oh fuck, I fucked up a friendship after that, because like, God. But then she started dancing, and I was like, what the fuck? And then she started dancing again after twice, and she told me that was the first time she had danced since coming to theater school, and my writing had made her do that. Okay. So that was the point where I was like, okay, I'm not an actor, I know that. My writing can do stuff.
Right.
My work can make people do stuff. They can give people inspiration, hopes, and dreams.
Had you written before that?
Yes.
Okay.
Sears Drama Festival, I would always write. I used to write novels in my basement when I was like 6 or 7.
Do you remember what the first time that you saw theater?
Yeah, it was a little play in a library called Lion the Witch and the... It was Lion the Witch and the Wardrobe.
Yeah.
And I remember I was shouting at the stage because like I knew how the book went, and I was like, "You're stupid! No, stop!" And I got in so much trouble that day. But like I think that's kind of what I demand in my theater now. I demand. I kind of when I watch theater, I kind of want that kid in me to be yelling, "No, stop!" or "No, do this." And when theater doesn't do it to me, I'm fucking bored. But like that was my first real experience I remember, because I was so embarrassed when I left. Mom was like, "You can't do that." I was like, "But I wanna move."
The funny thing
around.
is that really smart children's theater will capitalize on the child's need to participate. Right? If you expect kids to just sit there and watch a thing, they are not going to do that. Because they are too honest for that.
Exactly, and I think that's one of the things I really remember, just that experience of feeling so much shame as I left the theater, but also like kind of exciting that like I could do that. Yeah, I think the theater that excites me is theater that does that to me. It makes me want to go. Like when I saw Butcher last year, I was like every scene I was like, no, stop, but I couldn't.
Right.
Like that feeling of like grossness in your stomach that you want to do something. Like when what's that kid's name? Not Eustace. The White Witch kid. The kid.
Oh, Edmund.
Edmund, yeah. Like I'm like, no, don't do that. No, your family's more important than these like these Turkish delights. And that was something that like I don't know that really. I mean, I haven't really thought of it till now, but that's kind of like that's kind of my theater philosophy when I make theater. It's like I want to give that feeling to an audience of like no or yes.
Yeah.
And if theater doesn't do that to me, it's just like,
an audience like the worst thing is a complacent audience.
Right?
The worst thing is an audience that is sitting back and if they're sitting back, they're complacent audiences. Like they are not being challenged, and there's nothing that's really exciting them. You know, it's nice theater, and fuck nice theater, because theater shouldn't be nice.
Yeah.
You know, it should challenge you. I did, and you know, I'm sure that if you've talked with Richard Bone, he's mentioned Keystone Theater.
Oh, I saw Gold Rush.
Oh, fuck. Okay,
yeah,
so
you were on the show.
Yeah,
you were on the show.
Yeah. People don't usually it's because I have a beard. Normally, people are like they don't see it, and then all of a sudden the penny will drop. But like that, when we came up with doing this silent film style on stage, the audience actually is in like you can't be a lazy audience and watch that. Because you have to pay attention. Yeah. And now, of course, there's also the downside that sometimes the audience forgets that they are allowed to laugh because we are being silent, but that's okay because they're still enjoying it. But you find the audience leaning forward. Right? You know? Yeah. And, you know, I sort of, interestingly, with The Commandment, which was the play that I just did, it's not about the commandment. Yeah. It turns at a certain point, and it is a story, it's like a mystery that tells a story, and then it like punches the audience in the gut near the end because I built something up, but I don't tell them about it. People would say, "I didn't know it was going to punch me in the gut like that," and I'm like, because I didn't tell you. Because otherwise, if I did, it wouldn't punch you in the gut, right? It wouldn't affect you if I said, "Oh yeah," and it gets serious because this. You know, you've got to draw people in with whatever you can.
And the best part too is like, at least as a director, watching a show win or lose their audience is fascinating. That's like, I remember like I did an apprenticeship with Luke Brown at Theatre Aquarius 2 years ago, which really helped me as a director. He would always tell me, because I used to sit like middle. He was like, no, as a director, sit in the back. Sit in the worst sight lines and just watch how your audience breathes.
Oh, absolutely.
And like, again, it's one of those obvious things, like you're lying the witch is the wardrobe thing, that like I never realized till then, and it was just like, yeah, because the audience, like, actually, I've been involved with, like, we're doing a reading of this new script. Yeah.
And I guess we have to do a Q&A after. But everybody hates doing the Q&A, and the writer hates doing a Q&A because he already knows what he needs to know because the audience just told him. But we have to do this Q&A, and so if you don't ask the right questions to the audience, everybody's just going to tell you how they would have wrote it.
Yeah, which is the worst.
Yeah. But, I mean, the audience tells you what you need to know almost every time.
Yeah.
And if you're able to watch them. And, with The Commandment, I went from not being able to watch to look at the audience. That first performance, I looked around a lot of people.
You're also in Mills, right?
Oh, yeah, I was in Mills.
Yeah, that's a tricky space.
Oh, I loved it. It was perfect for what I was doing. But, so I had to look around people, and that front row did not get anything from me. But by my third performance, it was like, I'm looking at this person and this person and this person. And I know your eyes are there. Like, I was desperate for the people to, like, make contact with them. And it was amazing to be able to do so.
Totally.
Yeah. So, you've always been writing in some ways. And then, because you used two terms about your Ryerson experience. You've said dropped out, kicked out.
Bit of both.
Okay.
I was first cut in my year. I say kicked out because... technically, I dropped out, but they told me pretty much that you won't stand a chance in the second semester. And that really fucked with me, because, like, I don't know, I'm a millennial, and I'm told I'm great.
Yes.
So, that was such a valuable experience for me, because it made me really hungry to do things. I got kicked out, I'm not an actor, I know that. I think too much on stage. And, like, you can't, I mean, you need to think on stage, but you can't be thinking about things that aren't.
No.
And that's my problem on stage. But as a director, that's like, I have night terrors when I work on a show, like... I'm working on one right now. Like I'm blocking right now. And I think Ryerson was good because it pushed me toward that idea of like, no, you're a maker. And also like I really valued the training I did get. Yeah. Like the stuff I did in the Zone of Silence class really taught me about how scenes work.
Zone of Silence is one of those things that has been growing, and yet there's a lot of people who don't know it and who don't. Like if you were to be presented like. I would love to go back and do Zone of Silence from the beginning right now. Yeah. But it's because I know what it does. If you start it, I don't know who taught you Zone of Silence, but I was taught by Peter Wilde, who was the head of acting at George Brown at the time.
He passed on, I was taught by Jennifer Wigmore, who was kind of his standby. Yeah. But Peter literally retired the year before I got there.
Yeah. And Zone of Silence, one of the things about Zone of Silence is that you don't explain what it is that you're going for. Yeah. You have to figure it out as you go. So of course right now I would do it again because I could fucking kill that thing. Yeah. But I already know what the end result is.
Totally.
So the experience won't be the same. Yeah. It's one of those, Zone of Silence is one of those really awesome tools, especially early on. It'll teach you a lot.
Definitely. Yeah, I loved. I was terrible. I was fucking terrible at Zone. Yeah, but, like I loved it. I got so much out of it.
Yeah, we all are all terrible at it.
Yeah,
that's part of what it is. Eventually, a few people start to excel at it, but we're all fucking terrible at it because we're all just starting out, going like, "What am I supposed to do?" Yeah, and when the answer is nothing, you're like, "How do I do that?" Yeah. So, leaving. Theater school, there's two ways that people can react to that, and I've seen both. People leave theater school in that basically asked to leave / kicked out. Yeah. And it's happened at most theater schools.
Totally.
And you can either leave and feel like, I guess I'm not doing theater, or you can leave with more resolve to solidify and figure out what it is that you want to do.
It was a bit of both for me, because like I remember on one half, I was drinking with high school students, which was really sad. But the other half, I was like, no, I'm going to work. I'm going to work. I got, I remember, but it was really sad too, because until I got a company started in the summer, which did pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
But until then, it was just like I was writing this play that I didn't know was going to get produced, and I would lie to my family about the show I was doing in Toronto,
Mm-hmm.
so I'd go back and drink with my Ryerson friends.
Right.
It was like really parasitic, but also made me realize what nothing felt like.
Mm-hmm.
Like what it felt like to not be in it and not be constantly working on projects.
Yeah.
So since then, like I've never not been working.
Mm-hmm.
We did this Emerging Artists Festival in Hamilton, little community theater thing. We sold out all 3 of our nights.
Nice.
We were unknowns. Again, we won Best of Fringe in our first year in Hamilton, and then things kind of fell apart from that point on.
Well,
but it was just like that 6-month period from January to June. My dad was locked in. My dad was a steel worker.
Mm-hmm.
He was locked in at work, so it was a really hard time for my mom.
Right.
And I wasn't working. I was kind of depressed again. I was drinking and like making out with like 15-year-olds at parties. Like I was disgusting. But it taught me what it was like to do nothing and made me hungry. So like when people ask me like, Aaron, why are you working so much? I'm like, because I know what it's like to not.
Yeah.
And I hate it. But yeah, getting kicked out of Ryerson was probably the best and worst thing that's ever happened to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, right now you can look back at what it's given you, but at the time it must have been pretty.
God, I remember I was dragging this this garbage bag filled with my clothes because I didn't know how to pack a suitcase. I was like 18. Through Yonge and Dundas, and it was like slushing bullshit on me. And I remember thinking as I dragged it to the Union Station because I didn't have enough money, or a Presto at the time, to get to the station, I was like, I am never going to be this ill-prepared ever again. Yeah. And it was just it was so good. I think everyone needs to fail very hard early in their career repeatedly.
I think that, failure teaches you a lot.
Definitely.
I remember the first play, in fact, full circle back to Summerworks. The first play that I ever wrote, we produced at Summerworks when it was still a first come, first served.
Yeah.
I no longer have the script. It is better that way.
Oh, no!
The one review that I got from, I think it was The Star, said that the play had the impact of a feather duster.
Ooh.
So it's like, and we laughed about that, but you know what?
It hurts.
It was right.
Mm-hmm.
It was not good. So, and it hurt, it stung, and I didn't write for a long time after that.
Mm-hmm.
But, I learned I learned a lot,
You learn
from that,
You learn from failure, and I think that's the best thing. Like, if an artist only finds success and they fail for the first time in 7 years, it's just like, fuck.
Yeah, it's actually better to fail early on than it is to fail later. But still,
it's not how you
in
start.
fact, it's better to fail when you are young and you don't mind sleeping on couches and stuff like that than it is when you're a lot older. But it's still always valuable to. And I think that's one of the things that is amazing about a Fringe festival is that whole wild card nature, that whole I don't know if this is going to work here. Which can keep you on your toes, because otherwise, if you're not doing that, you can really kind of become complacent, and not be sure what's gonna you can really just sort of rest on your laurels a little much. So what is it? What are you working on these days? aside from going to see 30 shows at Summerworks,
and 30 shows,
which is a bit much, but
crazy.
Hey.
I'm with a company called Filament Incubator. We're producing 8 plays in 8 months. Okay. We're on our 4th play coming out in September. I'm directing the 6th show called Swan, and I wrote it. And I'm also producing a show called Tire Swing in October.
Okay.
I have a mystery project that I can't talk about in January. But until January I'm pretty booked solid, and I have to write another play for April.
Wow, jeez.
And I'm also doing Civil Factory. I have a mentorship, which is great, so I can just figure out and bounce ideas off Nina.
Can I ask you about your writing? Because it seems like you're writing very quickly.
Yeah. I write a lot.
Okay. No, it's just in terms of the deadlines you're giving yourself. As somebody who took 8 years to write his solo show,
everyone's different though, right?
I know.
Yeah.
It's just are you when you finish something? Because there's some people who finish and they're like, "Yep, done, finished." Or do you revise? Do you?
So what I do is I try to get a draft done. I put it to a read because I find often.
You can't learn anything if you don't.
You can't learn anything because it's what is going on here?
If you read it yourself, you're not going to learn anything. If you don't learn a thing until actors speak those words.
Yep, I have a dramaturg. I have a relationship with Lucy Powell. She's going to Columbia for MFA dramaturgy, which is great. And we keep running it through. Some shows require a lot more. Other shows do not. The one I'm working on right now was like 2 and done, which was bizarre. That never happens. And I'll hear things when it's done, and then I'll go back. Probably.
Right.
I think Scott Gilbert said the best dramaturg is the audience, which I agree with and I don't agree with.
I mean, I want to make sure that I have dramaturged it before it goes in front of an audience.
Definitely, yeah.
But the audience will teach. I mean, a lot of times the audience will teach you a lot. I mean, if something is not working, I mean, fuck. That's why people do previews of new shows, right?
Right?
So you can,
yeah.
And we don't do. I mean, one thing that you can over workshop stuff, but I've noticed that in Canada, we're not big on the workshop. We're like 2 and done. We're like
depends on what circle you're in.
Yeah.
I think that with the whole Indie Unite thing, I find it's very one and done. But like, yeah, I had an apprenticeship with Factory this year, and like just seeing their workshopping process.
Yeah,
because it's like a different world for I think artists of color.
Yeah.
Which I'm discovering. I'm discovering that I'm not white.
I think that's this is a hard thing to realize sometimes.
It is, but I think it's something that that I've been discovering recently in the past year, and something I've been discovering too, essentially about people of color in their work, is that just I think with Fujian especially that like they were based on development.
Yeah, absolutely.
And but like I know Kat Sandler can go done. Kat Sandler can get a show in 10 days.
Kat Sandler also has. I mean, Kat Sandler has Tom McGee, who's one of the fucking best dramaturgs you will talk to.
Yeah, I worked with him with rowing. He's fucking great.
He's really good, and she's got Daniel Paget in her corner.
Totally, yeah.
Like so,
she has a team.
She has a team of people who are helping her to make her. Yeah. I mean, not to diminish her talent because it is incredible. Yeah. But you know, it's not like she's working in a vacuum. She's working with
she's working with development people. But
the whole development is an important part of any kind of process.
Definitely, and I think that's something that I don't know. I guess the comment about that we don't do the workshop. I don't know. I've always thought about workshopping as a part of the process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting to me. The reason why I set deadlines so quickly is it forces me to write.
Right.
I'm like, hey friends, I'm going to finish this play in 30 days. They're like, okay, we'll do the reading, and then it's like, oh shit, these people booked off time for me. Yeah. It's kind of like I trick myself into working. Yeah. Because I'm like, oh fuck.
You know, I mean, I'm a believer in deadlines because I'm always writing. Yeah. I'm always writing. It's just a matter of sometimes, you know, if I don't have a deadline, I don't have to finish this thing.
It's like grants, right?
Yeah. It's like if I'm always writing, you know, I'll get to that eventually. But if there's a deadline that says on this date a thing's going to happen, then I gotta fucking write it. Yeah. But I don't have this. I don't have a problem with not having ideas and not writing. I just have a problem finishing. Mm-hmm. But definitely, the deadline will bring a lot of desperation.
On my deadline, I tell them the show is you're gonna get a full draft. Mm-hmm. Okay. And even then, I remember for Swan, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get a full draft on January 2nd, and on January 1st, I was like, oh fuck. Yeah. But having a gun to your head, and not everyone can work like this. I know, my bud took 5 years to finish. You took 8 years, you said.
For that particular play. There's other stuff that I've written that's been finished quicker. Yeah. But this particular play, it was very difficult. So I mean, every play takes a different amount of time to be finished. It's different.
Yeah, I know I can only write when nobody's in the house, and I can't write when I direct. The fact that I'm doing blocking right now means I won't be writing until this show is done. Right. And the mystery project in January is done.
I thought that when I was in Hamilton, I would be able to write when I was doing Hamilton. I said, okay, I'm going to bring notebooks. No! And then I sat down, I had after the first weekend, I was like, it's Monday. Nothing happens till 5 o'clock, so I'm going to write. And I sat down, I was like, my head is far too inside this play. I can't do something else.
And you're in the fucking play. Yeah. I don't know how you guys do that. Yeah. Writer director, I can't do it, but actor director is even more difficult.
I didn't direct.
Sorry, actor writer.
Actor writer.
Because one of the problems out of that world.
Well, I mean, the transition from writer to actor was a really difficult one. Yeah, because people are like, "Oh, geez, you wrote the play. I guess those lines are going to be really easy to learn." No, because it's a different part of the brain. Yeah, suddenly as soon as I become an actor, it doesn't matter that I wrote it. No. I don't remember writing those words. What the fuck does that mean?
Right? Because you have to kind of exile the writer for a while.
Oh yeah,
and just have him sit and go ice fishing and catch some fish.
It wasn't until I had the thing learned. That I could let the writer come back into the room once in a while so that we could tweak some language here and then, but until I learned it, it was nope, writer, out you go, because this is actor time.
Totally.
Yeah. So you've got all these projects on the go.
Yeah.
Which one's the first one that's coming up?
I'm producing. No, I'm not producing a show. My colleague, we're a 4-person producing team. Raw Matters. They're doing a show in September. Then I'm producing Tire Swing, which is a queer ghost story set in Clinton. I'm directing, and I wrote Swan, which is November, which is a detective story set in Hamilton. Even though
where do these things happen? Where do these plays get performed?
Swan is going to be at Theatre Pass by Backspace.
Okay.
The others of our season are performed in a basement in Kensington Market.
Okay.
An abandoned nightclub, former Club 56.
Okay.
56E Kensington.
Is that like an actual performance space, or you guys
guerrilla
we're
performing guerrillaing it? The guy just recently renovated it. We have a good relationship with the owner. I really enjoy doing theater, not in theater spaces. Like even with TPM back, like I'm doing the best I can to not make it a theater space. Just because I don't know, I'm a Disney World guy. I've been to Disney World 5 times, and it's just that like one of the things I love about Disney is they have sightlines. Like you walk places and the decoration keeps going. In fact, when you look at the Hollywood Tower of Terror, it's designed in a way that if you watch it from Morocco and Epcot, it looks like it's part of the Moroccan skyline. So I'm just like, there's an immersive level, and I think that's a big formative part, again, all over the board today. A formative part of my theater training was going to Disney World 5 times.
You can fucking learn a lot from Walt Disney.
Oh my god.
Like you can learn about presentation, and you can learn about sightlines, you can learn about misdirection, you can learn about everything.
They pump fake bread scents through the streets of Main Street, USA, so you'll buy their bread. Like, I was like, that's so smart. The way, when a parade happens, to keep the magic for kids, windows open on the 2nd floor of Main Street, USA, and there were speakers hidden in these rooms. Like, I'm obsessed with Disney, because it's like, to me, Disney World is like the keystone of immersive theater.
Yeah.
Because it's so high tech, there's so many tricks and gadgets, but you're walking through things, and you're watching people perform. You're watching, like, they have a whole underground network, so Aladdin can catch a smoke break backstage and come out and be Aladdin. I think Disney is fucking genius.
But also, I mean, that whole underground thing is so that nobody ever sees a costumed character walking to where they need to go.
Yes, they just appear. And when I went to Universal, I went to the Harry Potter world, which was great. I noticed that, like, once I was in line and I was in the stand line, I'm like, oh, this is just a soundstage. But yeah, I really value about Disney. I think
it's funny about immersive theater, because that makes me think. There was a show at Hamilton this year, and I've raved about this show to pretty much everybody I know.
My ex-girlfriend did that. It's the Sneaky Sneak.
Haley Pace.
You stayed her.
And it was brilliant, because it was immersive, and it was from like all over the place, and it was like there was this simple theater magic that just sort of happened in this room, and it was amazing.
Haley's a really cool theater maker, because she's been around a lot. Like, she went to Edinburgh, got slayed in Edinburgh. She did like one a night, but she got to see all this fucking theater. She went to Prague for the quadrennial. She's essentially like a self-made designer. She didn't get, she wasn't in the production stream at York, but her work was so solid that, like, they made her design a show. Like, Haley's a genius.
She's like the show that she presented was like one of the best things I've ever seen. Blew my mind as far as Fringe, and I'm like, this is something that like, keep doing this, because it is something.
But again, failure taught her a lot.
Well, failure teaches, like, if you never fail, you never learn. Right?
Exactly.
Again, and back to full circle, that's another thing why criticism is so important.
Mm-hmm.
And that if you don't get good criticism, you are never going to grow, because nobody will ever tell you what is quote unquote wrong with your show.
Yeah. And I think that's something that, like, I mean, that's going back to Hamilton. It's not just the spec. It's I think the View needs stronger reviewers. The View magazine, they need reviewers with an actual theater background who have a history of either theater practice or theater criticism.
I really think that the whole, like, if the Hamilton need for criticism, it can't happen with one publication. Like, it cannot be one publication or one reviewer, because, quite frankly, if there's one guy who starts giving bad reviews, then a bunch of independent theater guys are going to be like, well, they don't get to come to my show anymore. But I mean, really, if you can get a good review from everybody else and this guy shits on your stuff, you probably don't want him to come to your show. But then what you need is like a complete shift in the way the media works, and where they bring everybody brings in reviewers that can be strong and can give like good criticism.
So the follow-up question is, because I've been circling Hamilton, we've talked about this for hours. How do you do that?
Well, that is the question. How do you do that?
Yeah.
First off, again, if you look at the weekly paper, you have to like basically bring a staff that knows theater,
which is not happening right now.
Bring a staff that can think critically about theater, even if they don't. Right now, I think people are so worried in Hamilton about being boosters. People in Hamilton want to, like, art is the new steel in Hamilton, and everybody wants to make sure that they are building up the art. And it's almost like there's a fear that if you shit on it, if you say that it's bad, then the whole house of cards will fall down, and that suddenly it will be your fault that art is no longer the new steel. But instead, because you're not going to shit over everything, because there is a lot of good work that's happening there.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of work that needs work.
Yeah. I think it's interesting too, seeing the Fringe culture. I wrote an essay about this ages ago. The Fringe culture versus the culture of the rest of the year. Like, I know people who try to have indie productions outside of the Fringe circuit in Hamilton. They don't sell. Sky Gilbert barely sells in that city.
The thing is that Fringe is a particular thing. Because the advantage to Fringe, as far as an audience is concerned, number one, it's only an hour. Number two, it's only $10.
Yeah. Plus the button.
Sorry?
Plus the button.
Plus the button. But fuck, I mean, if you go to the Toronto Fringe, you're probably going to buy it, like pay $5 for the fucking button anyway. So who cares, right? But if like you're risking virtually nothing. I mean, even if you include the button, you go to see one show, $15. So what?
Yeah.
It's only an hour. So if it's bad, it's just an hour.
Right.
But if you're going to make it like, I don't know, a Saturday night or a Friday night, and you're going to pay anywhere from $30, $40, $80 to go and see a show, you are not going to risk it.
Yeah. Well, my question then to follow it up too is, what's the indie scene in Hamilton?
I don't know.
I've been doing theater there for 4 or 5 years. I still don't know. I think like that was the thing that really frustrated me about the city, and maybe it'll change because like people like Rose and Michael are there. That maybe it'll change, but like
I do think that there are people who are making theater there and who are you've got the Pearl Company, which is a great space, and you've got like there are spaces that and there are people who are making work.
Yeah.
And they're making good work, and I think that if they continue to do so, they're going to build up the theater scene outside of Fringe, because there are people who are, they're putting stuff together and they're making stuff happen. But again, this isn't something that happens overnight. Whether or not it's the maturation of the criticism, the theater scene criticism, whether it's the development of the indie theater scene removing itself from the amateur theater scene.
That's the problem.
But you know what? That's something that can only happen over time.
Yeah.
It can't happen overnight. So eventually, that separation will happen, and then there will be spaces to support that, and there will be people who are like, I will go and see that work because it is exciting and it is different. Because one of the things that every theater is struggling with is the aging of their audience and how to get the new audience out. But there are some people who are doing some very good work, such as the guy who did Dirty Girl.
Yeah.
Michael.
Crosturbator.
He's the work that he was doing was bringing millennials out, bringing people out who wouldn't normally go to see theater.
Yeah.
And so it is possible to bring them to theater. And so, really, the indie scene can do that in a way that the big professional scene cannot.
Well, Theater Aquarius, their audience, they've said it on record that like they're in a perilous financial situation because their house is too big for their stage.
Yeah.
So they have to produce musicals that will sell to people with money.
Of course they do.
And they have a gun to their head.
Of course they do. But I mean, if you are not able to bring in Hamilton or Book of Mormon or Matilda or whatever, or once, you have to do specific shows that the people who already want to see theater are going to see.
Yeah.
Because people will not bend over backwards to go and see those shows, and they won't scrape together what they need to make it happen. But the indie scene can do something that somebody like a Theater Aquarius can't, because they would be able to produce theater that can take a bit more of a risk.
Yeah.
It can be for people who don't have all of that money.
I guess just after doing theater in 5 years, I'm still waiting. And that's the thing that, like, that's why I left the city.
But, you know, the thing is that yes, you're still waiting, but there's two sides to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5 years in terms of the maturation of a theater scene is nothing.
Yeah.
5 years in a city where there are some serious growing pains as far as that theater community is, because right now you've got Aquarius and then you've got the amateur scene, which is developing into its own indie scene, but that's still in process. The other side is that you can also just try to make it happen, which that takes, sometimes you need a break from trying to make a thing happen, you know. So maybe and you come to Toronto, you learn, and then maybe you go back, or maybe you're like, I don't ever know, but who knows what the future holds, and who really knows. I often think in terms of Hamilton, like, it's changing, and it's changing fast. And it's becoming, I think there's going to come a time when the theater scene in Toronto goes, how can we be that?
Yeah.
Which is hard to believe right now, but I do think that it's going to happen, that theater people in Toronto are going to be like, I want to go there.
Yeah. Well, like, it's cheaper there.
Well,
like,
for now.
Well, yeah.
For now.
Claire's there, Merlot's there. Yeah, it's interesting for sure. I think the community's just they have to get together and do stuff, not just sit in circles and talk about it.
Yeah, you do have to do stuff.
And I think that's the issue that I had with the city, because, like, I remember this whole incubator thing, getting 8 companies together and doing 8 plays in 8 months, like 36p, 31p in New York. I was trying to get the going in Hamilton for 2 years, and everyone was like, no, let's wait. And I was like, no, now. And it's just different mentality. And I think
it is
that,
a different mentality.
But Rose is there. Rose Hopkins is there. Michael is there. And I think those two alone, they just gotta get some fucking color there. Like, because I was on a panel for diversity. I know we're going way off the rails again, but, like, and we're almost probably at time.
Just a little bit, but it's a podcast, so who fucking cares?
Yeah, you can cut down. Yeah, it's just that, like, it's white people there, and it's just like, that's fine. But I was on a diversity panel, right? And I was the only person of color there.
Well, that's like, having a panel about gender equality, and it's all dudes.
Oh my god.
But I mean, I'm trying to think of where the people of color were at Fringe this year.
I was there.
Hamilton Fringe.
Oh, Hamilton Fringe? They weren't. Julius Cho was in a little show there.
Oh, there's probably the closest.
Othello Moore. But she didn't write it. Well, Esther's colored, actually, so that does count. But yeah, see, it's like, it's tricky.
But then you can't. I mean, can you you could try to manufacture it.
What do you mean manufacture?
Well, you have to like for example, if I'm writing something, maybe I write, this is a role for a black actor, this is a role for an Asian actor.
Yeah.
Right. I do that, and then we have to hunt for that person. I don't know, because my experience, I know they're there. They have to be there. Are the people who are writing for Fringe and creating for Fringe in Hamilton, for the most part, I mean, there are exceptions, obviously, just not writing for those people, not inviting those people in. Do they not feel welcome in that scene?
Going back to this, because I just did a show with an all-Asian cast that was Chinese spoken. In order to get people of color out to auditions, you have to seek them out, because when a person of color reads an audition call, they'll know it's not for them. Right. Immediately. Like, look at the fucking Great Wall movie.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
well, fuck, yeah.
Yeah, but, like, I think it's just something in the arts that, like, makers have to be conscious of. If you want a diverse cast, you can't just put out a call. You have to contact people like Neely Aquino, people like Marjorie Chan, David Yee, Philip Aiken, go, where are these actors? And you message them personally to come to your auditions, and they will show up. Yeah. Like, they aren't like albatrosses flying around.
No,
they will show up, but you have to go that extra mile.
Yeah.
And I think that's just something that, like, it's not an issue in Hamilton right now, because the scene is almost entirely Caucasian, but, like, it's an issue here.
I think that it's a thing that probably should be an issue.
It should, totally. Oh my god.
Because again, you're only talking to a part of your audience, and you're not talking to all of your potential audience.
Yeah.
Diversity is one of those things where, and I mean, I'm a privileged white heterosexual male, so it's I sometimes feel like a fraud if I ever talk about this.
That's totally fine.
Because I think it's important that we see more color on the stage, because I think it's important that our stages reflect what we see outside our doors.
Yeah.
But I have been guilty of not specifically writing a character and saying, this is a black character.
But here's
because
the thing,
I
though.
know that if I don't do that, when it gets into artistic director's hand, that it is highly likely that artistic director is also a white heterosexual male who is going to see all of the characters that I wrote as white heterosexuals.
Yeah. It's tricky. Like, I don't really know how to solve that. Well, the way you solve that, you program more 80s program more work from people of color, so then the stage becomes more diverse, and then you can get true colorblind casting.
It's true. Now, here's an interesting thing.
Yes.
Because there are ways that you can encourage certain things. The Montreal Fringe, for example, is 50-50 English
French. Yes.
And that is part of their mandate. They have their French programming, they have the English program, because it's Quebec. You could, as an organization, if you were a Fringe festival, you could. There are ways that you could encourage diversity.
Toronto does, with the culturally diverse artists.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Why not do that?
Yeah.
You can make that happen. I mean, that's a pretty new thing for the Toronto Fringe, I think.
It's three years old.
That's new.
Very new.
That's very new. So, and I mean, Hamilton is a few years behind other Fringe festivals.
Totally.
But there are opportunities to lead.
Exactly, you know? And I think that's something that even though I might not be a fan of a lot of things that Summer works, most of the shows I see are diverse there. Most shows like
that, but then that is part of. You have a curation. And the curation says we want important plays with diverse casts.
Yeah.
Right? So, of course, there's more diversity because it is curated.
Well, I don't know how you solve the diversity problem in Hamilton.
Well, I mean, if you knew...
If I knew, I'd still be there.
If you knew, you'd still be there and you'd be making it happen.
Yeah.
Man, it's
hard.
It is hard. It's hard, like... There aren't easy answers.
If there were easy answers, like we'd all be rolling around in muddy right now.
If there were easy answers, it would be done already.
Exactly. So. Yeah, so I think that's an interesting thing for me, because one of my friends did a diversity report card for the Fringe. We went around and just saw all the artists of color, and it was like, even in Toronto, it was rough. But I think, especially with Factory having their first successful season ever since Ken got fired, and having actors of color on stages. I think that will really change the game, because you have a theater run by a woman of color, a brown woman, selling incredibly well.
Yeah.
The show that sold the most of Banana Boys, all Asian cast, they sold out their theater for almost all of their shows. That's never happened in a long time at Factory. Like, what?
You know, the interesting thing is, and you know what, I mean, yes, it's one of those, now it's a cultural touchstone, it's about to go on TV. Kim's Convenience was theater that was presented and sold to an audience that had not seen itself on stage before.
Yeah.
At Soul Pepper, they went out and got people who don't go to theater to go to theater because it was a story they knew.
But that's the thing. They did that extra step of outreach.
Yes, they did.
I was talking to Ains Choi about this 2 years ago, and he mentioned how did he sell Kim's? Like, how did you sell out? And he was like, you know what we did? They were like, we didn't flyer. I'm like, okay, because when we play writing contest, they went to Korean churches every Sunday and said, we're doing this show. And all the Koreans were like, oh, fuck, that's about me.
Yeah.
Like, it's all, and flyering, going back to flyering, full circle again. It's about going that extra step and seeing, like, where's my demographic?
I mean, the interesting thing, you were saying about Cam Baby not having to flyer. Kim's Convenience didn't have to flyer. Again, it won the playwriting contest. From day one, that play had a line that you couldn't get into.
They had done the work.
I had to line up 2 hours before that show to get tickets to that show at Fringe. So,
and they're going to Broadway.
They're going to New York. They're on TV.
Yeah,
they're on TV. So
fine.
Again, that's, you can criticize Toronto Fringe for a couple of things, and one of them is its constant seeking of the next Kim's Convenience, the next Drowsy Chaperone,
totally,
the next to kink in my hair.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm comfort again. Kim's is like a comforting thing, which is nice.
Of course,
my story matters. But yeah, I'm excited. That's I think the one thing to take away from all this slagging in this podcast. I'm really optimistic, just for the future of POCs, the future of young people doing theater in general, and I'm optimistic even for this city I just shit on. Hamilton, I'm very optimistic for it because I think there are people there who are hungry. I keep telling Michael, he's like, I want to go to Toronto. I'm like, no, you stay there. And he's like, yeah, because he's dedicated to staying in that city and making things. Rose is dedicated to making things in that city. And I think between those two and the new people that Alert is going to build, the Bathtub Girls are coming back to Frostbites.
Frostbites, yeah.
And they're such a good...
Did you see that? Yeah.
I mean, I think it needs some dramaturgy, but, like, in general, I was really impressed by what they had made by themselves.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is they didn't have a director.
What?
They didn't have a director.
That's insane!
No, I knew as soon as I said I was going to blow your mind. Because they did that on their own.
The images were so clean.
So if they had a director, they will make something... I mean, Bathtub Girls is an amazing thing.
It's solid. It's a really solid piece of theater.
It's short. But I didn't
mind that it was short. I was like, you did everything you do and you got out.
Yeah. So it's like it was an amazing piece. So.
But like going back to Hamilton, then that's the energy the city needs. Because like you, they were flyering. Lovely people, so friendly. At the end of the show, like talked to us in the lobby. Yeah. They shout out shows. They interact on social media. Like the city needs more people like those two girls because they're making work that's edgy and ballsy, but they're not pretentious about it.
Yeah.
They're like, we know what our show is, but we're here to have a good time. And, like, fuck. Yeah. Like, to me, they're the spirit that I wish I had when I was in Hamilton. As old man Jan sitting on his chair. I wish I was more like those two young girls.
Yes.
But, yeah, I think that, like, that's the spirit a lot of festivals need. That, like, people very friendly, making cutting-edge work. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
I think we'll
talk your fucking
we will stop there. Thank you so much for coming out.